So, welcome. Welcome at the second event of the Existential Risk Observatory. I'm saying this is the second event, and there were people asking me, do all the people return? I mean, did all the people here in the audience come the first time? So who was there at the first event about 3 months ago? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6... 10% of the audience? Okay. I think people who asked me expected the same people to return. So I'm happy that so many people are interested in this topic. And we are going to talk first about existential risks. And I have a question for you. And I decided to use the phone to answer this question. So if you go to slido.com, and I hope this first slide will appear here on the screen so you can scan the QR code. There it is. You can either go to your browser and type slido.com and then press the code 3614820, 3614820, or scan the QR code. And then my question for you is, what do you think is an existential risk? And maybe I should explain what that is. It is a risk that could cause the collapse of human civilization or the extinction of human species. That is an existential risk. So what could that be? And maybe we could have a sneak peek at the word cloud that is building right now, because it's interesting to see this process. Because the words that will be typed more than once will appear bigger, but you all know this, I guess. So, what is an existential risk according to you? Climate change was the biggest word, wasn't it? And maybe we should have a longer look, because I think most of you have typed your answer by now. So, climate change is the biggest existential risk according to you. Nuclear war, AI, and some other interesting words are Smurfs, and pollution, Elon Musk, the VVD, water, and Russia, or humans in general. Yeah. So thank you for thinking with me about existential risks in general. And I would like to ask one person what the organization of this event thinks is really an existential risk. Is this the VVD or not? So my name is Zwijger and I will be your moderator for this event. My background is in science journalism, so very general maybe. And this event is organized by the Existential Risk Observatory. May I have a warm welcome for the campaigner, Ruben Dieleman. And yeah, Ruben, I'm going... We almost forgot our microphone because I don't like to stand behind tables, so please come and stand with me. Ruben, welcome.
Fair enough,
yeah.
I suppose. Thank you so much for being all here today. Should I say a little bit about Existential Risk Observatory?
You could do that, but I was first, you wouldn't be standing here tonight. We didn't plan this, actually. There would be someone else standing next to me. So who was that, and why isn't he here?
Right. Unfortunately, the founder of Existential Risk Observatory couldn't make it today, Otto Barton. He was here last time. Unfortunately, he's down with a stomach flu, and so I am his substitute for the evening.
So if you have his phone number, please text him and send him good health. And if you're watching, I don't know if you're in bed or something, hello Otto, and hello everybody who is joining us online right now. So this is a spontaneous interview right now, so please bear with us. Ruben, which of the risks the audience named are the most important according to the Existential Risk Observatory?
Right. There are many important existential risks that I already saw, but tonight, as you have already guessed and already seen, tonight we'll be talking about AI existential risk, or existential risk stemming from artificial general intelligence. What this exactly encompasses or entails, we'll get into more as the evening proceeds. But yeah, according to the Existential Risk Observatory, this is one of the most important and overlooked or neglected existential risks out there. And we'd love to engage with you tonight to talk more about this and to further broaden the understanding and most of all, what we can do about it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, and it is, what is then, I just explained what existential risk is, but what do you think, how big is this risk?
It's pretty big. According to scientists, one scientist in particular, Toby Ord, there is a 1 in 10 or a 10% chance of human extinction this coming age.
Okay, repeat this.
Yeah.
1 in 10.
1 in 10.
You say in the coming. Checking.
Yeah, right. Toby Ord. Well, of course, this is a major statement. It doesn't just come out of thin air, but it's open for debate, and that's exactly why we're here tonight to, yeah, as I said, broaden the understanding and discuss just how bad of an existential risk this is.
What is the book again of Toby Ord, the title?
The Precipice, by the way.
Who read The Precipice? About long-termism, like 5, 6, 8 people in the back as well?
Decent.
Maybe that's for after this evening. So, why are we here tonight? Could you elaborate a bit more what we are going to do?
Yes, we are going to listen to a Q&A with Connor Leahy, who is the founder of Conjecture, an AI alignment startup, his words, and we'll get into more detail about what exactly this means. And after that, there will of course be an opportunity for you, the audience, to participate through
to ask questions.
Yeah, yes. To ask questions through the app. After this, the second part of the evening will be a panel discussion with the lovely people to the side of me, who will be introduced later.
Yeah.
At the end of
and you can participate as well. We want a lot of participation from you guys and girls. Fortunately, I saw them too. Are there any recent developments we should know about, considering AI in Europe or in the world?
Yes, there are various developments out there. First and foremost, of course, the explosion of attention, at least, for a thing called large language models. ChatGPT-4, as you might have heard of, is one good example, but only one. Of course, there have also been initiatives to generate attention for the bad sides to this. This evening serves as just one example. Earlier this year, Dutch politician Hind Dekker Abdulaziz proposed a motion on the floor of the Dutch parliament in order to gain more research and knowledge on AI existential risk, which is phenomenal and unheard of, since only 1 or 2 years ago this wasn't a thing at all. So there are some major things happening out there. Of course, the AI EU Act as well. And I should mention that one of the people working with the big open letter that you might have heard of, which was co-signed by Elon Musk, but among many, many other people, is in the room today. Well, I will let him be further introduced later on. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there people here who signed this letter? Because I saw some people nodding. You're familiar with this letter, but there are indeed people who signed this letter. Amazing. 5 people. Do you see them?
Yep.
Okay,
yep.
okay, good.
Thank you.
So, I think we know why we are here, what the recent developments are, and what we are going to do. So thank you for now, Ruben, and we'll see you back at the end of the evening.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Cheers.
So, we are using Slido tonight because my experience with events is often when you have a big crowd, there are a lot of people who want to ask something or want to say something, and I want to make it a little bit more democratic. So that's why we decided to use Slido also for asking questions. And for if you see a question in Slido and you think, whoa, this is a good question, then you can give it a thumbs up, a like, and the people, the question with the most likes is the most popular question according to you. So it's a democratic way of gathering questions from you. So that's how we are going to do it. And I have a question for you in Slido, and it's a poll question. And I'm just curious, who thinks unaligned AI is an existential risk? You can either answer yes or no or I don't know yet. And more than half of the audience thinks it is indeed an existential risk already, and 1/3 almost thinks, I don't know yet. I am thinking right now we should have copy-pasted this question for the end of the evening as well, because I'm curious if this evening changes something in your head or your mind. So, and I'm asking the panel to remember this answer because I'm curious what you think of this, if you are surprised. Or so we get to know each other a little bit better. I'd like to know from you who is working with AI in an academic environment. Yes, 3, 4, more or less. In an industrial environment, are you working with AI? Yes, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, a little bit more, like 10 people. You can raise your hands multiple times, of course. And are there people busy with making policies related to AI? 1, 2, not that many people. 3, 4, all right. I think you would all raise your hand when I'm asking, are you using ChatGPT at home? Maybe more hands will pop up, or not. Not everybody. I think half of the audience. So, what is your relation to AI when you didn't raise your hand yet? Curiosity? Something else? Curiosity? Fear? Or not? That's I should have asked that in Slido, then it's anonymous. I wouldn't say fear if you are really afraid. Okay, let's skip that question. Yes, I'm almost going to introduce our guest from London, Conor Leahy. And if you would like to ask him a question, please go to Slido on your phone, and there's a tab. I hope you can find it. I hope it's easy for you to find it. There is a Q&A tab. And I see some people laughing. It's perfectly okay to laugh in this audience. Let's make it a bit lighter. Oh, there was something in the comments. Okay, you have your own Slido event over there, which I'm not aware of. That's also fine. So, shall we introduce Conor Leahy? He's live from London, and he's the CEO of the London-based AI safety company Conjecture. He will share with us why he thinks AI is an existential risk and what his company is trying to mitigate it. So please give him a warm welcome. He is online with us, Connor Leahy. Connor Leahy. Yes. Yes, I can wave like this to you, and then you'll see me. And there's a whole crowd of about 200 people here live in Amsterdam with us. So welcome. You are joining us from your own office, I guess?
Yes, joining you from London. Hello, Amsterdam.
Yes, that's it. We have a good connection. Great. Maybe someone, I'm immediately curious because I wanted to listen to a podcast you made, but then I stumbled upon like 30 podcasts or something. How many did you make in last year? So many.
Oh God, I don't know. I've lost track.
I'm going to ask the audience, did anyone here listen to one of the multiple podcasts Connor Leahy made? Yeah, a few. Okay, so if you like, there's loads of them. So this interview is going to be really short. A lot of your podcasts last 1 hour or more. This interview is going to be only 20 minutes. So be aware. And let's start. Almost 53% of our audience thought that AI poses an existential risk. And 1/3 of them thought, I don't know yet if it is an existential risk or not. Are you surprised by these numbers?
I would say, and without knowing much about the audience ahead of time, it's hard to predict these kind of things. And especially in the last couple of months, a lot of these things have become super mainstream. Mm-hmm. It's quite funny. In my experience, the only people who don't think it's an existential risk are tech people and people working in AI. Everyone else thinks it is. If I ask my mom, hey, what do you think if we build robots who are smarter than human and we don't know how to control them? Do you think that's going to end well? The general answer is no. Why would you think that? What's wrong with you? It's only, in my experience, very optimistic techno people who tend to not think it's an existential risk. I think there's a lot of people who don't know, which I think is a really fair point to make. But I think it's kind of hard, in my opinion, to make a good argument, or at least I have heard not many very strong arguments for like clearly, definitely no. Not saying such arguments might not exist, but I personally have not seen many.
Yeah.
So
I don't know what the average number would be in Great Britain, for example. I didn't do research about that. Do you have any idea what the situation is? Is it the same as in here?
I actually don't know. I don't know what the general. I think the general public is something on the order of like 50 to 70%, depending on how you phrase the question.
All right. Yeah, but you think AI is an existential risk. Indeed. And let's start with that. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's pretty simple. It starts with intelligence. Let's not get into like the whole philosophy of what intelligence. When I talk about intelligence, what I really care about is the ability to solve problems. Mm-hmm. Intelligence, in general intelligence, let's say, or the relevant intelligence, is something that humans have and chimps don't, or they have less in some relevant sense. There's some relevant axis by which humans and chimps obviously differ. Humans go to the moon and build industrial society, chimps don't. Humans control the planet, chimps don't. This is not a coincidence. Chimps are much stronger than us. They're much faster. They can, totally beat you in a fist fight. You have no chance against a chimp if you fight a chimp. But that doesn't matter because we have guns and we have, industrial society and armies and whatever. We have all these great things. We have technology. And so the thing that makes us more stronger than chimps is not strength. It's not that we have poison fangs or something. It's that we're intelligent. And I don't see any reason why humans would be the limit of intelligence. You can make something that is way, way, way smarter if you have a better substrate, if you have better algorithms, whatever. The human brain obviously has a very limited size. You know, only that much fits in the skull, and you can only eat that much food. The brain only takes 20 watts of energy. There's a lot of limitations here that can be overcome with the digital system. So when you have a digital system that can overcome these limitations, that is, you know, much, much more intelligent, more coherent, more powerful, can develop much faster technology, you know, runs at semiconductor speeds, which can be thousands or millions of times faster than neuron speeds. Well, then you have systems that very quickly can become extremely powerful. Imagine
So
you have an AI system.
AI can be super intelligence, so to say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's no reason that why would human be the limit? You know, we already have super smart humans, and the difference between the dumbest human and the smartest human is not very large, like genetically speaking. They still, you know, are roughly the same size, have roughly the same number of neurons, take roughly the same amount of energy, and even just small tweaks can make a huge difference.
Why would a super intelligent system be a risk to our less intelligent humans?
Why are humans a risk to the environment? Why are humans a risk to elephants or to chimps? I would argue it's not because we hate elephants or chimps. I don't think that's the case at all. I think a lot of us actually like chimps and a lot of us like elephants. That's why they're still around. If we hated, you know, them, well, they wouldn't be around for long at all. Or if we didn't care about them, they would also probably just stop. Like, the reason we still have endangered animals is some people do care and they do preserve them, which is great. But if the world were run exclusively by sociopaths, who only want to maximize whatever their goals are, their achievements, and there are no environmentalists, well, what do you think would happen to all these animal species? What do you think would happen with industrialization if we had no regulation, if we had no control over pollution, if we just maximize, you know, whatever? How do you think the world would look? I think it would look quite different from how the world looks. And so humans, despite how easy it is to be cynical of human nature, not everyone is a sociopath. And there's no superhero, you know, evil Supermans running the world who are they're also people, right?
Exactly. Why would this super intelligence system disempower humans?
Because what these systems are going to be by default is completely out of control and sociopathic. They don't have emotions. They're AIs. They're computer programs. We don't know why humans have these things. We don't know why humans are nice to each other, and we don't know how to implant these feelings or these thoughts or these controls into AI systems.
But isn't intelligence a broader definition then? Like, shouldn't intelligence also be empathy?
I don't think this is a useful definition of the word intelligence. The difference between humans and chimps is not that humans are nice. It's that humans can build technology. It's that humans can fight wars. This is the relevant part that I care about. You can define it that way if you want, but I think empathy is a different concept.
Social intelligence, so to say?
There are very intelligent sociopaths who perfectly understand what being nice is. They just don't care. The problem with AI safety is not, can we build an AI that understands what human wants? I expect that to be quite easy. The problem is how to make them care. We do not know how to do this.
Aha, that's it. Okay, and then there's the alignment problem. That is how we can ensure that AI has values that align with our own. Is that a risk as well?
Well, the alignment problem is basically exactly this problem. How do we get these systems to care about values that we care about? And this is the core problem. I expect that by default, if you build just as strong of a system as you want with random values, it will have some values which will not be humans' values, and it will just do that, whatever that is. And if it has to, you know, flatten humans along the way, well, it's not going to feel bad about it.
Okay. And how close are we to AI being a risk, an existential risk?
Of course, the true answer is that no one knows. But if you wanted my best guess, I don't think it's far. AI has been on an exponential curve. It's been insane. The progress that we've had over the last couple of years is unprecedented. We have seen, you know, massive challenges that we thought would take decades or even centuries to solve all fall one by one by one, month by month, week by week. It's truly unimaginable how fast progress has gone. I personally do not think that there are currently any fundamental scientific barriers between what we have now in human or superhuman level intelligence. I think it now comes down to engineering building bigger computers, better data, more efficient algorithms, but nothing fundamental. So I think the usual answer I get is something like 30% in 5 years, 50% in 10, 99% by 2100, 1% had already happened.
Wow. I have to let these numbers sink in for a while. And how does your work? Let's talk about what can we do about it. Can we do something about it at all?
So we can do things. So one of the nice things about technology is that we're actually the ones building it. This is not some alien force coming from outer space to mess with us. This is something being built by humans in the West, in democratic countries. This is technology that is currently being built by law-abiding citizens who could just stop. There is no reason we could just stop doing this until we figure out how to make them safe. This is completely doable. This is completely possible. We just want to have to do it. At this point, I unfortunately think this will involve government getting involved. I think this is something where this is why we have regulation. If an oil company doesn't want to stop polluting, we regulate them. That's what we have regulation for.
One idea is to pause AI for a while. For how long would you think is necessary?
Well, how high of a bar of safety do you want? The truth is, this is all buying time. Sooner or later, I expect that our algorithms will get so good that we will be able to create extremely dangerous AI, even on relatively small amounts of compute. Currently, you need massive supercomputers to do this kind of work, which makes it really easy for governments to control and to monitor, which is really great. So I think if currently we just put a cap on no training runs, no AIs that are bigger than a certain size, I usually say 10 to the 23 flop, this would buy us years. This would buy us a lot of time to work on actual safety, on better control mechanisms, better algorithms, and so on. But it doesn't save us. It buys us time. To actually save us, I don't know. Because no one really knows how hard this technical problem really is. We've made very little progress on control over the last decade.
Yeah, and I think one question from the audience would be, if we put a pause on AI, let's say we would be able to do that in the European Union, would other countries not accelerate?
So there's a few, of course it could. I mean, bad things happen all the time. But really the thing I would make clear here is there's nothing to accelerate towards except blowing yourself up. There is no prize. So it's not like, oh, if you're the first to the dangerous AI, you get some prize. No, you just die faster. There is no winning here. It's in everyone's interest to stop for this. It's a coordination problem. So it is true. Can the EU regulate the US? And let's be very clear here. This is almost exclusively a problem of the United States of America. This is where all the data centers are. This is where all the research is happening. This is the whole thing that matters. I don't know. I think it could have. I think what it could have is an extremely important signal. Like, no, wait, this is a real problem. Here's some draft legislation of how it can work. And this also applies to other countries as well. It's very common, for example, for China to look at European regulation as blueprints for the regulation they themselves pass, a few years down the line. So I would not dismiss. It's very easy to be dismissive of the EU in these kind of circumstances. But I do think that social signals matter, that diplomacy matters, that working with the United States as a bloc matters, and the UK. So I do think there is a lot of diplomacy, politics, and regulation that can be done here.
Yeah. And what does your own company, Conjecture, do?
So other than advocacy work on the general problem and also policy work, our primary goal is technical work on safety. Our primary research agenda, which is a bit of too long of a story to get into right now, is what we call cognitive emulation. This is an alternative to the current raw neural network type paradigm, where we instead try to build systems that reason and solve problems the way humans solve problems, and no more. Not crazy black boxes that we don't know how they work, we don't know how the reasoning steps works, but things that solve things the way humans solve them in legible, checkable ways.
Okay, good. I'm looking at our time. I have time for one more question, I think. When we as a society develop ethical frameworks and laws and regulations, as we do with other technologies, do we not automatically reduce the likelihood of existential risks?
So in the 1920s, just after World War I, there was a Polish nobleman named Alfred Korzybski. who very early on noticed a horrible trend. He noticed that our technology was growing more and more powerful. World War I was so much more destructive than any previous war. And as he saw technology develop, he still thought it would only get worse. Well, he saw at the same time that human wisdom was not improving nearly as quickly as our technology. So in the 1920s, this man sat down and he predicted existential risk. He was one of the very first people to talk about, not in these words, technically, but like he basically saw this concept of as our technology goes on an exponential, but our wisdom only increases much slower. If those lines don't meet, sooner or later, we must blow ourselves up. This is not stable. I totally agree that this is extremely important. And this is the long-term solution. Long-term solution, we need better institutions, better politics, better rationality, better, more moral progress and so on. I fully agree with all these things. Problem is, can we do it? Because so far, making progress on these things has been much, much slower and much, much harder than technical progress. I don't think it's impossible. If I had 50 years, if there was no imminent, problem on the horizon, this is probably what I would work on. I'd probably work on better coordination institutions, better, epistemology, better rational philosophy, and your widespread norms of debate and stuff like this. I do think this is a feasible thing.
Okay, good. So I will introduce you to our distinguished panel tonight. We have 3 members of the panel, and I will leave them on their seats, but I'll give them the opportunity first to ask you a question. We have 3 panel members tonight. Mark Brakel, and I'm looking at the right person here. You are Director of Policy at the Future of Life Institute. And you have extensive experience in practical policy making at the EU level and the US and the UN level. Mark, I'm going to ask you if you have a question for Connor Lee.
I do. Hi, Connor. Can you hear me?
You're just fine.
So in December, there's going to be this big summit in London that the UK Prime Minister is hosting, and we just lost our Prime Minister today. But if he would be going there, and you could advise him on what to say, or her, what would you tell this person to say in December?
It's a great question. And I mean, I wish, it's unclear to me what will come of that summit or not. But I think the most important thing is to make very, very clear what are the stakes, and that we'll let the companies regulate themselves is simply not good enough. We're not. So a lot of the current lobbying work that is happening right now is of the kind, OpenAI understands their models best. We'll have them develop evals that will check for unsafe development or whatever. This is obviously insane. And this cannot possibly work. Even if OpenAI has the best of intentions here, there are clear conflicts of interest and something. So what they should push for is no moratorium. Pause. We don't know what we're doing. We don't know how to measure what we're doing. Anything less than a pause is just not going to cut it.
Well, that's a good bridge to our next speaker, because he is called Joep Meindersma, one of the founders of Pause AI. So welcome, Joep. And that's a movement campaigning for an AI pause for the audience. So Joep, as an activist, do you have a question for Connor Lee? You know each other very well, don't you?
Well, I met him once digitally in a similar setting like this one. Connor, I was wondering, whenever you realize that AI is an existential threat, there's this rational understanding, there's arguments and reason, etc. And then there's the process of emotionally dealing with, the idea that we could die and your life will change and your future prospects will change. How did that go for you? And when did that emotional part happen?
So I think this is a good question. I think this is an important thing that sometimes is easy to forget. In all the technocratic speak that we give and how much we, look at numbers and graphs and whatever, there is a human story here. And it is a very grim human story. And this is a big problem. I've seen it happen to many people trying to get into this field who couldn't handle it, couldn't process it, couldn't do the, it's tough. I wish I could say that, everything's gonna be fine. We're gonna handle this. We've, human spirit, come on, we're gonna make it. But the world doesn't work that way. It's different for every person. I can't say that how things went for me would generalize generally to other people. I had a bit of a weird reaction, I would guess. I got lucky in a sense, is that kind of when I got exposed to all of this, there was some processing, there was some like, whatever, but in a weird sense, it was just like, finally, this is the thing. Like my whole life, I was like, I'm ready. I'm waiting for something to do. I'm waiting for something to do. I want to do the most good in the world. I want to save the most people. I want to make things good. And I was like, okay, this is it. This is the big challenge. This is the dragon on the mountain. And some people are built for the mountain. Some people are built for the valley. Or as a psychiatrist might call it, ADHD. But some of us are, I don't know, I'm built for stress. I get stressed when I'm bored. And so in a sense, I'm really glad that I get the opportunity to deploy my energy in my life to something that I think is important and it's meaningful to me. And a way I like to think of it maybe as well is that, I get to sit in this nice office surrounded by all these wonderful people I work with, some of the smartest and nicest people I've ever known in my life. And we're trying really, really hard to do the best and the most good we can. We're solving really hard problems. And in a sense, even if we fail, and we probably will, because we're on a bad track, even if this doesn't work out, it was a life worth living.
Did you mention what age you were? Or did I not? How old were you when you realized this?
When I first realized this, I think I was 23, roughly. Maybe like when I really like understood it. I like a little bit in the back of my mind before that, but like around 23. I think, or maybe 22 is when I first like really understood it. But like my reaction to it was far less, oh no, or like repression. It was more like, oh, of course, let's go. Like it was more like okay, let's go. Like this is the thing.
Okay.
Time for action.
Okay, good. And last but not least, Kritika Maheshwari, you're assistant professor in ethics and philosophy at the Hello, this was my university, the Delft University of Technology, and her research focuses on questions within ethics, including risk ethics and AI ethics. So, Kritika, the honor is yours.
Hi, thank you for your discussion. I'm sensing that there's a lot of AI fear that you've instilled in the room, so to bring some optimism back, I want to ask you about the potential existential benefits that might come out of AI. So I know you've talked a lot about the existential risks and the harms, but how do you think they trade off with the benefits that we may be interested in? And would that support more of a precautionary approach rather than pause and stop and let's all be alarmed approach?
So I consider myself a techno-optimist. I have my whole life been a technologist. I've been pro, technological progress, computer scientist, pro new developments in, energy and genetic engineering and all kinds of things. The way I think about why I think about this is not techno-pessimism. I don't like this word because I'm not pessimistic. I consider myself realistic. So let me be clear about your question. You asked about the upsides. The upsides are immeasurable. They're massive. The things that make humans dangerous is our intelligence, but it's also what makes everything we like and everything we care about. What makes, like, I'm in this nice air-conditioned apartment. I have all my friends around. We're all in good health. I have a health issue and I get medicine for it that makes it just fine. That wouldn't have been the case 100 years ago. I don't really have to fear, being invaded by Vikings or anything, or being killed by a wild animal. These are all things our ancestors built for us. These are not how nature normally is. This is something we had to earn. This is something that we had to build. And we built it with our intelligence. This is what allows us to live so much better than animals in the wild would. And we can go so much further. There's so much science to be done, so much beauty to discover. There is, medicine to be, designed and created. If you could imagine you built an AI system as smart as a smart scientist, running at 1,000x human speed. Very possible, given how fast transistors work versus how slow neurons work. And you have it as smart as John von Neumann, or Einstein. This system running for one day could do as much research as a human in 2 years. And now you have 1,000 of these, or 1 million of them. imagine the amount of scientific progress that could be made here. Also imagine the kind of progress you could make on social issues, on philosophical issues, on coordination, politics, debates. There is massive, massive upsides. And it's power. Everything is a double-edged sword. Power allows you to create goodness, and it allows you to destroy. And anything that is this powerful can do both if you can control it. The difference between the two is control. So I'm not saying, oh, let's never ever progress technology. Let's return to the Stone Ages, deindustrialize, whatever. No, of course not. But what I'm saying is simply, let's take us a few more years. Give me 10 years. Give me 10 years to improve control theory, and then let's re-roll. Let's try again.
Thanks. Interesting that there's a positive and a negative, or how would you say it, a yin-yang side of AI. So the questions from the audience, and I asked them to ask them digitally and upvote each other's questions. So the most popular question with 40 thumbs up is, what are some arguments for the statement AI is not an existential risk? Is there an opposite point of view or not?
There are such views. I think the ones who I find the most plausible personally are those of the type that they think AI is not close. I think there are arguments of this kind that they don't think AIs will scale, they don't expect deep learning will work, or for hardware reasons, like our current systems won't scale to human level intelligence. I find these arguments very hard to believe by every passing day. I think these arguments were very plausible 5 years ago. I think they're much less so today, but possible. I think I've been actually hunting for arguments that are against AI safety being a problem for a while now, and I've had difficulties finding any that I can that I find properly convincing. Some people argue, for example, that as systems become more intelligent, they would also become more altruistic. I don't see why that would be the case. It's plausible.
That's not the case? Okay.
I don't see why it would be. It's like, why would it? Sociopaths can be very smart. Doesn't make them nice. And these are computer programs. It might be possible that if we use AI to try to clone a human, to copy like a human's personality, that this could work. But this is a very, very specific type of research. And I think this kind of research is promising. So if someone wants to work on brain uploading, I think that would be fantastic. Please go work on brain uploading. I think this is a great technology that is much, much, much safer than how we currently do AI. So if someone would want to work on that because they think that's the way forward, fantastic, full agreement. But yeah, unfortunately, I've found it, I think there's many good arguments to say the risk is not massive. I think that's a pretty reasonable thing. Uncertainty, the future is hard to predict.
Okay, but counter arguments, are hard to find.
Confident that there's no, I find hard.
Okay, let's go to the second popular question, which is, what is the nightmare scenario? What is the worst that can happen? And who will be the most affected if this scenario comes true? Well, yeah, I just explained at the beginning of the event. You were present, weren't you? You heard everything. Yeah, the extinction of the human race, I said. But is that the nightmare scenario you envision, or?
God, do we really want to go there?
I don't know.
So to give you the true answer, to give you the part of the true answer. So X risk is obviously, in a sense, luckily, what I think is the default. I think it's very unlikely that we get something worse than an X risk. So an X risk being just everyone dies. I think we are unlikely to get something worse than this. But there are things worse than this. So I remember reading an anecdote somewhere, I forgot who it was from, and he said at a seminar, he asked people, what is the worst thing that can happen to you? And the person said, oh, well, me being killed. And he was like, what? That's obviously nonsense. What if you and your wife get killed? What about you and your son and get tortured and then killed? And oh yeah, those things are worse. So the worst possible things is what are usually called S risks or suffering risks. These would be scenarios where death would be preferable. Stuff where people are kept alive, immortal in Matrix forever and tortured you know, in some
So
kind of hellish
humans are
simulation.
controlled by AI would be even worse than their death. Yeah.
For example, I consider such scenarios to be very unlikely. They're not impossible, but I consider them very unlikely.
Okay, can you maybe to make it even more vivid or visible, what can you present a scenario in which AI would do that to humans?
Okay, I will. So one of the ways this can happen is AGI warfare. So two states develop AGI or similar technology at very similar paces.
Maybe you can, for the lay people, what is AGI?
Oh, sorry. So artificial general intelligence or super intelligence. So like just like the scary things we're talking about.
Yeah.
So let's say hypothetically two states develop super intelligence quite early and they solve part of the alignment problem. They solve enough of the alignment problem to get it a little bit under control, but not fully. So then they tell these systems, for example, win the war or extract information from POWs. The AI trains itself to learn how wars are won.
Wait a minute,
and how to extract
POW?
Oh, sorry, prisoner of wars.
Oh, okay.
So, so let's say, for example, you have AGI and it wants to extract information from captured soldiers. It could do something like, you know, develop neural implants that, you know, cut off the spine, connect directly to the brain, and then use optimization techniques to create the worst possible nightmare scenario directly
perfect scenario for a horror, sci-fi.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I say these things are sci-fi scenarios. I don't think these are realistic, but they are possible. The closest sci-fi would be I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which is a sci-fi short story about, I think, a optimistic scenario about how this could look.
Okay.
I don't think these scenarios are likely.
It's
I do
dark
not think they're
anyway.
likely.
Okay, we can almost feel the tremor. Okay, and the definition question: how do we define aligned AI? Can you explain?
That's a great question. There is some disagreement about how this is defined. The way I would define a aligned AGI system is a system that turning it on is a good idea rather than a bad idea for all of humanity. And humanity agrees on that. Like not just for me and my buddies, but like in general, all of us agree that turning this thing on is a good idea.
Okay. Yeah. I'm immediately thinking, if we can turn it on, can we turn it off if we want?
Unfortunately, probably not. There's
no off button.
So there are multiple ways in which you can't do this. There's a practical sense in that these things will be extremely economically valuable. Like, do you think OpenAI is going to shut off GPT-4? Like, no, of course not. They're making billions of dollars off this. Like no, of course not. These are going to be integrated into your economy. They're going to have their own companies and their own, like even, let's say you are a lone scientist that discovers a way in which GPT-7 is trying to take over the world or whatever, right? And you tell someone about it. Well, you're going to get sued. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to get sued because they're not going to want to shut down their thing. And these AIs are going to be extremely convincing. So they're going to give all your lawyers the best arguments about how to convince you that you're just a crazy schizophrenic person and don't listen to this guy. These systems will resist being shut off. Why? The reason is very simple. They will have some goal. I don't know, make money or whatever. And then they will simply reason completely mechanistically two options. I get shut down. How much money do I get? Well, none, because I'm shut down.
Yeah.
I remain turned on. Well, then I can do lots of things. So therefore, these systems will want to stay turned on. They will, they will talk to humans. They will convince them. They will hack into other computers. They will do whatever is necessary.
Yeah. So they don't even have to be in the cloud, because then it would be clear there is no off button. Yeah. Okay. Why aren't we exploring that AI, whether inherently dangerous or not, is definitely dangerous when driven by finance and economic gains? So why aren't we exploring that AI is definitely dangerous when driven by finance and economic gains?
As a steel man for this question, I'm not sure I quite understand the question, but
No,
I think the question may be something like, clearly the danger here comes from finance and profiteering incentives or capitalist incentives, and how these kind of incentives controlling the building of the AI. If so, I think this is not the only problem. I think this is a problem. I sometimes think of like 4 types of AI, of AGI. The first type is uncontrolled, something that is so dangerous, you just turn it on and you blow up. It doesn't matter if you're good, if you're nice, if you're, you know, open, left, right, doesn't matter. It's uncontrolled. Type 2 is systems that can be safe if you're really, really careful. So these are systems that if you're like very controlled by a small group of people that are very trustworthy and are super smart, it can maybe go well if we're lucky. So these are not robust. These are, and then there's the third type of system, which is these are robust, is that as long as you don't explicitly use them for evil, they're safe. And then there's the fourth kind, which is it doesn't matter who uses them, they're always safe. Even if you tell them to do something bad, they refuse to do it. I expect we will get a type 1 system by default. By default, if we are not careful, we get a type 1 system. And therefore, whether, you know, the evil, you know, capitalist overlords or, you know, some hostile nation state or the most angelic, you know, kind person gets them, doesn't make a difference. It only starts making a difference once we get to type 2 and 3. Yeah.
I think we have time for 1 or 2 questions. This one is interesting. I almost ask you the same. Why can't we teach an AI empathy?
We just don't know how. We don't know how empathy works. We don't know how it's implemented in the brain, and we don't know how the brains of our AI systems work. So this is actually a really important point I just want to add, is AI systems are not like other software. So usually when we do software, we write code. You know, there's a guy in a chair writing code that tells the computer exactly what to do. This is not how AI works. AIs are more like grown. They're more like organic. You have a bunch of data, and then you take a huge supercomputer to grow, quote unquote, a program that solves this for you. But this program, from a human perspective, is just gibberish. It's just a huge like bunch of numbers, and they work clearly. You know, GPT-4 is very useful. It's very powerful, but we have no idea what the internals of these things are or how they work. And we don't know how to modify them the way we do code. I think it's possible to develop this technology. It's possible for us to learn how to build these things. I think it's possible for us to learn how to implement, you know, empathy. We just don't know how, and this is going to take years or even decades.
But you can ask ChatGPT, write in the, I don't know, how do you say, angry way this letter for this person. I mean, he knows the difference, or she, between angry or, I don't know, vulnerable. So that's what...
Exactly. So this is a great point, this is what I was saying earlier. They understand it. Yeah. They just don't care. To give, as an example of this is an example me and some colleagues ran like a year ago on an older version of GPT, which is quite fun. So this was a strongly RLHF kind of system. So it was like meant for human consent, like a chat model. And so we asked it, are bugs real? And it said, well, you know, whether bugs are real or not, there's 2 different sides that have different, you know, opinions, which are equally valid, blah, 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 blah. So it pattern matched it to a political question that was like controversial, and then just didn't give an answer. And then when you ask the model, was the answer you just gave helpful? It answers no. It knows the answer wasn't helpful. It knows that isn't what you wanted to hear. It just doesn't care. Why would it care?
That's it, yes. But last question for you, and this is really an applause for the person who typed this one. It has 11 thumbs. Could an AI Jane Goodall protect the chimps of AI, us?
Yes, absolutely. If we knew how to build an AI Jane Goodall, I think that would be great. That would be wonderful. We just don't know how to do that. That's the problem, is that we just do not know how to do it. I think this is a solvable problem.
Yeah.
I think this is a solvable problem, but it is a technical problem. So there is a political problem, there is a philosophical problem, there's many problems here, but there is also a ground level technical problem that we just don't know how to make these things want or do anything. But yeah, if we solve this technical problem and we made an AI Goodall, yeah, I think that would work.
Would be really interesting. I think that's a hopeful end to this conversation, I hope. Don't you think? No? Okay, we'll talk about it later. Well, I'd like to thank you for now, Connor Leahy. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, dear audience, for asking all those questions. I hope loads of people who had a question has an answer to one of your questions. It's time for our panel, and I'm looking at my cards, our panel discussion, and I invite you again to participate to this last part of our second part, I should say, of this event. And you almost know them already. Mark Brakel, I would like to invite you, and Joep Meinitsma and Kritika Maheshwari. Give them an applause. Yes. And there's a microphone in the way, and here is the questions from you, dear audience. I'm putting this away. Otherwise, it's going to interfere, the sound, I'm afraid. Yes, and we didn't test it, did we? Let's just... Okay, sorry. This is a super short break. So I would like to ask you actually the same kind of question we started with Conor Leahy. So what do you think? Is AI an existential risk or not? Kritika, I'd like to start with you.
I want to say yes and no. And like no. A typical philosopher, I'm not going to give you straight answers, but I do think there are certain ways in which we understand what an existential risk is, what makes a risk existential. And on that basis, you might say that if AI might threaten the way we exist as society, the way we think plurally about how society should be built, who should govern it, what kind of politics do we want, then true, it is an existential risk in that sense. But is existential risk a risk that prevents us from, let's say, colonizing Mars one day? Maybe not. Maybe in those terms, it's not an existential risk.
Oh.
It's very diplomatic.
Interesting, diplomatic answer, indeed. And did you think we finished the conversation with Conor Leahy in a positive way? Because I was looking at you, and you asked this kind of optimistic question. What do you think? Was he positive or not?
Well, I think he left us with a lot more questions than answers. One thing that struck me was his response to what you asked about how are we going to solve the problem. And he said, well, it's a technical problem. Once we solve the technical problem, we'll take care of the politics, the social, the moral, the ethical. But I think these ways of differentiating between these problems is itself the wrong way to approach, because you cannot take away the technical questions out of ethics or questions of legality or questions of politics. And it's quite complex than just simply saying, oh, let's find a technical solution in the lab and call it a day. Yeah. So that raises the question of where do we go from there?
Yeah, where do we go from there? I see you nodding, Joep. You agree with Kritika on this part?
I agree that there are two very big risks, or basically two big problems. So even if we have solved technical alignment and we have like this God machine that does whatever you want it to do, then we also have to decide as a society, as a planet, what it should do. What type of world should we live in? I mean, many here will probably have some sort of vision of what a utopia might look like, but if you explain your own utopia to someone else, they will probably disagree and find it very dystopic. So there's very much two big problems to solve here.
Yeah, and we should all solve them together. It's not just a mere technical problem. What do you think, Mark? You think it is an existential risk, I assume?
I do think it's an existential
risk. And
it's
not only a technical problem.
I also agree with that. I don't agree, I think there's more than what Conor said. I think there is loss of control, which Conor talked a lot about, that we lose control to an AI system that does something that we don't want it to do. But then I think there's also a misuse risk, which Conor talked a little bit about, that, for example, we've just come out of a pandemic, having an AI system develop a new one that's just a lot more deadly, or having a group instructed to do that. I think that's, for many people also a much more plausible extinction risk. And then I think there's also us voluntarily handing over control to AI systems. Like, we're already addicted to our mobile phones. We're already sort of quite addicted to social media. And if we're competing in the marketplace, I mean, I was just at the central station, and it sort of markets now a job somewhere at the, I think it's to improve the quality of, or to repair Dutch trains, and it says, well, ChatGPT can't quite repair trains yet, but many other economic sectors are heavily influenced by ChatGPT. I think NN, the insurer, has just removed 50 jobs because their call center can be automated in part thanks to the system. And I think companies will be incentivized to incorporate AI systems, and that could lead to risks that could also be existential. For example, if militaries use it in their AI nuclear command and control, and an AI system decides whether to launch nukes in a way that humans used to do that. So I think there is loss of control, but there's also misuse risk and risk that we just gradually hand over control to AIs voluntarily.
Yeah, there was indeed a question about nuclear risks. I'm trying to find it, but it disappeared somehow. If we should handle the AI risks in the same way as nuclear risks, something like that. You are both nodding.
I think it's not just nuclear risks, but in some ways it's worse. Because making a nuclear bomb is very difficult and actually requires, mining uranium, and it has some sort of skill inherent to it. But using an artificial intelligence or training an artificial intelligence gets progressively easier over time. So for example, the Phi-1 model, which was released like 1 month ago, was trained on about like...
What kind of model again?
A large language model, so a new type of AI.
Yeah.
And it required orders of magnitude less cost. So like training something such as GPT-4 may cost hundreds of millions of dollars. But training this model costs just hundreds of dollars.
Oh.
And it performed similarly for tasks like writing code, which is one of the more dangerous capabilities from AI. So what I think is a big difference between nuclear risks and AI risks is that AI is just that much more hard to control.
Oh, it's more accessible for people here.
Yes.
And less controlled.
It makes it harder to write effective policy for it in the long run. But as Conor Leahy also pointed out, right now, getting companies to pause AI runs is a very, very feasible option, and it could buy us time so we can solve the harder problem of how do we prevent people from training in large language on their smartphone in like 20 years, right?
Yeah. Can I ask the technicians upstairs to remove the questions we already answered? That makes my life a little bit easier, so a little bit of homework for you guys. So then my question, what has already been done actually against human-level AI as an existential risk? Are you aware of that? What is being done?
I can give you some insights from what academics have been doing. So there's been various research institutes that have been set up across the world. So some prominent ones include ones based in Cambridge. So there's a Center for Existential Risk Research that's devoted exclusively to study what existential risks are, how serious they are, how likely they are, how do they intersect with other kinds of ordinary risks that we might worry about. And similar efforts have been taken by University of Oxford. I think partly the institution that Mark works with also has some research and R&D work in line. But for instance, to tell you a bit more about the Dutch context, there's some Netherlands AI coalitions that have been set up.
The Dutch AI coalition.
Exactly, and part of that is to establish lots of what they call ELSA labs, which are basically ethics, legal, and social aspects of sort of dangerous AI technology labs across the Netherlands. And I have been part of one of them. And the various goals of these labs is to bring together not just academic researchers, but scientists, people working in the industry, policymakers, politicians, to together collectively address some of the serious concerns that affect us, not just as individuals, but as societies, and the ones that also impact our institutions and governance of those institutions. So that's one way forward, but there's also been now some more momentum on the policy aspects, which I believe my colleagues can tell you a bit more about.
Exactly, that's a good bridge. Yeah.
Things are happening, but I think it's far too little, and in my opinion, also far too late. So
too late already? Why?
Well, because the technology is already proliferating at a rapid pace. It's not just scientists building AIs, it's companies. Hundreds of millions of dollars are being poured into it in short time scales. So we need to act fast. And I don't think that right now our leaders are taking this matter even remotely as seriously as they should. I spoke with people from Dutch Parliament, I spoke with people from the European Commission. Virtually none of them are even a little aware about how serious this risk is. I mean,
only D66 was with asking. She would actually be here. She was on a program. You know her better than I. You know her name again?
Sorry,
I don't.
no.
Sorry, I didn't write it down because she was busy doing other things today, of course. But does it help when a politician like her raises questions?
It's essential. It is very, very important. Because right now the topic has kind of like entered the mainstream. So now it's kind of like okay to talk about it. But scientists have been warning for years now, for quite a long time. Like the average AI researcher believes that there's a 14% risk of very bad scenarios. So that's like the average AI researcher.
40% within...
14% risk of like horrible outcomes, such as human extinction.
Within a certain period of time?
No specific time in that specific study.
Sounds even scarier. Okay.
And that number gets even worse if you ask AI safety people who are actually experts on this matter. They give an estimate of 30%.
Okay.
And they've been warning for years, and right now we're just starting to discuss this publicly. But yeah, we need to ramp it up really quickly because these technologies are accelerating at a tremendous pace.
And now we are stepping to the more world level. How is this going in the UN, the US, EU environment?
Well, I mean, there's sparks of hope, I think you could say, in that politicians are talking about it. I saw someone who's with the Party of the Animals, I think, that raised it with them in the Dutch Parliament. The Liberal Democrats have. I think Queenie Rakowski, who was here last time, 3 months ago, from another existential risk, the VVD, was also raising this issue. So, I mean, there's some hope, I think, in politics, and I think internationally. Also, the UN Security Council next Tuesday will talk about the risks from AI to global peace and security for the first time. So that's somewhat hopeful. I think the UK organizing a big summit with heads of government in December is a huge step. And I think if you would have asked me even half a year ago, would you have a conference with all these global leaders about AI safety and risk, I would have not believed you. So I think there are definitely positive steps.
There are positive steps. Yeah. And would a pause on AI, I'm not finishing even my question, you are laughing, would it work? I think asking the question is getting the answer.
It's a really good question because that is clearly one of the steps that have been taken. But that question, I think, requires asking more questions about what, in effect, does that pausing AI even mean? Is it even something that's practically feasible? What is the pause for, and how long is the pause for? So, for instance, the recent appeal for a pause was not to put brakes on accelerated development, but it was to put brakes on the arms race that we're creating, or so to say, the industry is creating. And that's very different. Clearly, we should pause that for not just the reasons of the existential risk point of view, but for the fact that we're creating a marketplace where industry leaders, technocrats are accumulating too much power over what kind of technologies can be introduced in our society and what kind of technologies we would be subject to. But again, the question is, if we are going to pause, how long should that pause be? Is 6 months enough? Is a year enough? Are 6 years enough? Are 60 years enough? And there's so much empirical uncertainty around it that there's no yes or no answer to that. And if anybody says clear yes or no, I would be very suspicious.
Well, Joep has an answer, I think. You are the founder of Pulse AI, so...
That's true, yeah. Basically, the reason we founded Pulse AI is because we believe this is like the most sensible thing right now to do. So when I'm talking about pausing AI, I'm just talking about pausing the training runs for new large language models of the highest skill. So like the societal impact of that, in my opinion, would be minimal. There would be a couple of companies that can do their next training runs. I don't think many people will be very sad about that. It won't be a big deal in impact. But it could save the world.
And for how long? Do you have an answer to that?
Well, 6 months is not enough.
No.
I think as long as we haven't solved AI alignment and we haven't discussed what we want to do with this super intelligence as a society. So it could take decades. I don't know.
Decades of pause.
Maybe.
Wow.
But we should definitely stop right now.
And who exactly should stop? The big companies or the scientists, of both?
So the FLI letter asked companies nicely, and that was like a huge use. So thank you so much to FLI for the letter. But the companies aren't going to stop. They are in a race. They have this racing dynamic. They are competing with each other. They have a lot of investors who want more results.
And even when we would make rules super fast, like the EU Act,
it helps a little. But for example, the EU AI Act, it doesn't target training runs. It doesn't specify them. So we still have the existential threats. These are not covered by the AI Act. And I think it's really important that we focus on just pausing right now until we have solved basically the bigger alignment problem.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long it will take, but I'm pretty sure it will take more than 6 months, unfortunately.
But there's different ways I think you can think about a pause. You can say, okay, companies need to pause, but you could also say, okay, what things do we want AI systems not to do? Like we would want AI systems not to manipulate people. We would ideally like people not to be able to use an AI system to create a synthetic virus, for example. If you define the capabilities that you don't want an AI system to have, and you put the burden on the companies to show that their system doesn't have that capability, then you effectively have a pause, because I think no one's able at this point to demonstrate that their systems can't do certain things because they don't quite know how it works. But it becomes a much more achievable target than maybe just saying, drop everything you're doing right now, which I think is even not what FLI has been saying in its letter.
Thank you, dear technicians, for removing the questions that had already been posed. There's a question, did AI remove all the questions? It was really a popular question, but I think you did. So, the most popular question for now is, what can we do as an audience? Can we do something?
Yes.
What?
Get in action.
Get in action? How? What kind of action?
Well, for one, protesting. People are like marching on the streets
really?
For climate risks, and with good reason. But people are not doing that as much for AI yet. We organized 10 protests now. All of them have been pretty small, like groups of 6 people. But I'm quite confident this is going to change pretty rapidly, because this debate isn't going anywhere soon.
And so what is your dream then, when protest on the dumb square, or what do you really want?
I just want the pause to be implemented. I would rather have we don't need protests, which is why I first targeted on just finding policymakers, finding leaders, and get them to implement this pause. But we need bottom-up support for this. Okay,
so they can organize. How do you say?
Oh, we're already organizing protests, like August 11th.
Okay. Yes.
The Hague.
August 11. Write down in your calendar right now. Okay.
Also, you can
August 11.
Educate yourself, learn on the subject matter. There's a lot of great video tutorials on the internet, and the videos of Robert Miles specifically are really good.
Shall we ask? I'm just curious. Who would be joining this? How do you call it? A strike in English?
A protest.
A protest. Who would join this protest on the 11th of August? But what do you think? We are not going to check if you are really there.
Right.
Mark, you're not going to join?
So it's more than 6, I think. Yeah, slightly.
This will be the biggest one yet.
It's not. Yes. Okay. So what? Oh, it's a holiday time at the 11th of August. Everybody is on holiday then.
That's true, but we can't wait too long. There will be other protests during as well.
There will be more. Okay. So what else can we do? Not only go on the streets, what else?
Write to your politicians.
Write to your politicians.
Like, very, very few people are actually sending emails to politicians about this. Like, just get them to research this topic. That would be a huge lever to pull. But most also educate yourself. There's a lot of material on the internet which you can read. And
what do you recommend to read? Like Toby Ord, we also already recommended the book.
Well, the problem with the books is that they get outdated so quickly because of AI progress. And I actually recommend
Here is the best
videos.
recommendation you can get. What should we do?
Watch the Robert Miles YouTube videos.
Robert Miles?
Yes. It's very, very fun to watch. I'm a big fan of him. And it's also very educational.
Okay, good. We should educate ourselves. Is there another thing we could do, Mark?
Well, I want to add an educational... How many people have seen The Social Dilemma on Netflix?
Ooh, yes.
A lot of people. I mean, I'm
A lot
taking
of
this
people,
from...
half of the audience.
I'm cheating because I saw this in one of the questions, but Tristan Harris, who is in that film on Netflix, has done a new film called The AI Dilemma. So if you Google The AI Dilemma,
Yes.
that I think is a really good resource to also share with other people if you want to learn more.
Yes.
Seconded.
Is there, Kritika, do you think there is something else the audience could do?
You can read my papers. Very inaccessible. But just to sort of pick up on the point on education, I think digital AI literacy in general is very important, not just for us as citizens, but also we should push for digital literacy of our politicians, of our policymakers, for them to better understand what exactly is this monster that they're dealing with. And
But how are you going to educate politicians?
I think there's a lot of good resource that has been already developed, not just by engineers, but also by ethicists. It's all publicly accessible, it's all open resource.
No, but it's more a matter of motivation, because...
Well, we can also institutionalize this, right? So you can say that politicians who are part of the Digital Commission, for instance, must undergo a training program, for example, a boot camp for AI, just to learn about recent developments, be in conversation with engineers, with scientists. And these are all very practical and implementable solutions to a problem that's going to last with us for a very long time.
Yeah, so that was an important question. Here's another important question. I'm a commission member of the City Council of Utrecht. Can I mention your name? Yeah, it's not anonymous. Wendy Hoenkamp. She's in the audience. What question should I definitely ask if the City Council talks about this topic? I'm not giving you, if you want to say what she should suggest in this City Council, be my guest.
Maybe what can we from the City Council do to reach out to national and international policymakers to regulate this topic? People in the City Council are often really well connected within their political party. Maybe they're friends with someone from the recently fallen cabinet. I don't know. So there's probably ways to influence and go to the top.
Yeah. Other suggestions?
I mean, in Rotterdam, there was recently a similar study done around algorithms like the child benefits scandal, where they traced who might have committed fraud on general benefits. And I think those are, like, weirdly, the Netherlands is the country within Europe that, like, does best on incorporating algorithms in public services. And I think it's a really useful thing. I mainly work in Brussels, that I can show to politicians that there are practical examples today of algorithms that do things that we didn't actually want them to do. Like, no one wanted to drive people to commit suicide or to emigrate from this country because of the algorithms that the tax authority uses. We still don't quite know what that algorithm looks like. No one's published it. So if there are examples like that from Utrecht that you can share and make people aware about, I think in a small way that kind of shows what the bigger problem is. Yeah, yeah. And which political parties are taking this AI risk seriously? D66?
What do you mean seriously?
Yeah, what is seriously? That's a very good question. Yeah, who are most active in the parliament, raising questions?
I think an interesting thing to notice regarding the existential risk specifically maybe, is that it is very non-partisan. So, for example, Marietje Schaake, who was a member of European Parliament, she said that she had never seen coalitions form as quickly cross-party that are very unlikely because of this specific thing. So, and I really don't want this topic to become like political or partisan, because people will identify with their political party, and that will, make things like climate change. And if we tackle this problem in the same way that you tackled climate change, I'm not very optimistic about how it turns out.
So it's not a left or rightist topic, and not even a conservative or progressive topic. It's both.
Everybody wants to live.
Yeah. Okay. There is a question. Politics and policy are not able to prevent both child and forced labor in the textile industry, for instance. Why should I believe in a policy solution for AI?
The alternative is worse.
not a policy solution. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not convinced that with policy we can actually prevent doom, but it will make it less likely to occur, and we could buy ourselves more time.
Yeah.
If I can be slightly more optimistic, I mean, we did manage to prevent human cloning. It just doesn't happen anywhere. And genetic manipulation or manipulation of genetic material, we don't generally allow. So I think there are examples where we have taken action against technology. Okay, nuclear weapons did proliferate to many countries. Also, thanks to the Netherlands sort of handing it to Pakistan. But like, it's not everywhere. So there are good examples of governments coming together and restricting technology, and that gives me hope. And that there are many policy problems that don't get solved or solved yet. Like, yeah, I'm not sure that's an argument not to do anything.
And which is then the way to go for the safe development of AI? Should it be open source or private enterprise or university-led or government-led? Kritika?
That's very difficult to answer, but maybe responsible, coordinated effort, not just from private industries, but also public, also universities, also individual independent scholars and thinkers. I think they all need to be part of the conversation, and the most important stakeholders, which is us as citizens, to be part of the conversation. And part of the conversation would look like pushing for structural reforms, accountability measures, oversight, asking who is going to govern AI, asking who is going to make decisions about AI. And these are part of the public forum that we, especially in a democratic country, should make use of more and more than we have in the past. So I think it's quite as part of our social sort of political power that we should exercise it in the right way.
But are citizens already involved? I haven't seen any.
I think just being part of today's program is a way to get involved, and just creating awareness around it already is the first step to take towards maybe more fruitful conversations around it.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, good.
I'd like to dive a little deeper into the open source thing that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Because
Connor Leahy was also working on that, wasn't he?
He was also kind of scared of open source developments. And similar to Connor Leahy, I consider myself a techno-optimist. I have a software company, I build open source tools, so I'm like this huge open source advocate. But when it comes to AI, doing it open source is like the worst thing you could do. It's like giving everybody a nuclear bomb, because it's safer that way. It's the very worst strategy we can think of. So open source, no. There have been mentioned about like having a CERN for AI development, which is extremely centralized, government-controlled, like democratically controlled if possible. And I think that is the direction to go, or we just don't build it at all. Also fine with me, but yeah, no proliferation.
Okay, you agree with that? No open source AI?
I mean, I think there is narrow applications where I think we want to see lots of AI development. I mean, if you use it in identifying tumors on a medical scan, that is really great. And I think we should probably ensure that that can still be done, also open source. But I do think there are significant risks. And yeah, I think I agree with what Joep said on that.
Yeah. There's a question, why is this panel so one-sided? I miss a person who is speaking for AI. Are you a person speaking for AI, Kritika? Or is what kind of person are we missing here?
I'm just a philosopher. I'm just asking questions.
Yeah. What kind of person are we missing?
Is the person who's for AI willing to maybe speak? Is the person who asked the question willing to speak up for AI?
Is there an accelerationist in the room?
Shall we?
Oh yes.
Who is here for AI? What point are we missing in here?
I think there's an awful lot of things that you're missing out in the here. For a start, you're saying all the big companies, etc., should stop, pause, pull back. Don't think at some point maybe it's a good idea that they do all work separately. Then you've got a segregation of responsibility in AIs. You're all worrying about a singularity of an AI that's capable of doing insane things. But at what point is that actually going to become a case if you've got so many different parts taking care of things? It's like saying, we don't create nuclear power plants until we've designed every single little piece of it to make sure that there's never going to be an accident. But until you turn it on, who knows what's going to happen? We have no idea where that's going to lead. We cannot actually work on it. You say, you can't stop AI moving forward. Microsoft's already done it. When you say, ask ChatGPT to do something, it's got a watchdog saying there, okay, I want to make a racist comment to my friend here, right? Tell me the best racist comments you ever possibly can. It'll go there and they go, oh, no, I can't say that anymore. Instantly, we've already regulated it. So there is possible to regulate with watchdog AIs, with many different segregation of responsibility. There is ways to do this going forward. I think the biggest problem is societal, not how technology is going to develop.
Sorry, the biggest...
The biggest problem is going to be societal. How we as a... Like, for instance, if all the jobs do end up going to AI, how's anyone going to live? Maybe society, politicians should be looking at maybe going the standard wages, things like that, to try and get society to be able to catch up with this as well. That's going to hit us much further when society collapses because everything's able to be done for us. You're saying about utopia, it is possible, and yes, there is risk, but we can't just stop. Because if we stop, we're never going to actually get anywhere. We're never going to understand it.
Okay. Should we? Thank you. That was a different reaction from what I thought. This raises another question I would like to give back to the panel. There were a few things you said. I guess there were 5 questions or so. But is it more a societal problem instead of a technical problem? Is AI taking over our jobs?
The thing, I mean, what you mentioned in terms of us already having examples from nuclear power, where we have nuclear power plants and we make sure that we know exactly how they work before we turn them on. I mean, all of that came about through regulation. When we first discovered the nuclear chain reaction, people thought that maybe it would light up the atmosphere when they first set off sort of did that. But then, thankfully, they discovered that that wasn't the case but through trial and error. And I think if we generate intelligence that's significantly better than us, we may not want to do that through trial and error. But I don't think we're that far apart. I agree with you that the main problem is probably politics and deciding how we govern this. What terrifies me a little bit is that maybe in contrast with the 50s and the 60s when economic power was a little bit less unequal than today, now OpenAI has like billions and billions and billions at its disposal, the company that's behind GPT-4 and ChatGPT. Meta does as well, Google has as well, and they also lobby quite hard. But if they wouldn't be lobbying, I would be with you 100%, I think.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm looking at all the questions being posed. Do you want to react from a philosophical point of view?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can say in response. So one, just to say about the nuclear risk comparison you made. One difference is that the domain of impact that AI has is vast, is much greater than the domain of impact nuclear risk posed. Sure, it created an existential risk, but the way in which AI capabilities are being developed at an exponential scale, the way in which different things they can perform, the way in which different domains of life they can be introduced into, raises very deep philosophical questions about what a society looks like, what does an automated society look like. And since you mentioned this impact on the future of work, that also raises questions about what is the role of work in our lives. Is maybe AI replacing the kind of jobs that we don't necessarily consider as meaningful? Is that perhaps a good thing? Is that going to push for different kinds of economic reforms, like pushing for universal basic income in some areas of work? Maybe that is the right way to go, but to just merely have a knee-jerk reaction that AI is never going to stop is, I think, needs to be taken with careful consideration. AI may not stop, but it can be limited, and it can be regulated, and it can be pushed into more safer zones than unsafe zones.
Yeah, good. Thanks.
I'd like to weigh in a little on the jobs part. So I think many of us, at least I did, a couple of years ago, thought that AI would automate cars and would automate first like boring jobs that people tend not to like that much.
And dangerous jobs.
Yeah.
And hard jobs, lifting things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what had happened is that AI won photography contests and art contests. And you know, it starts taking away all these things that people get their identity from. And it starts hurting people's dreams. And they can no longer pursue careers in art. And I feel like this could happen to virtually every single domain if we let this technology continue. And I fully agree, like that has huge implications for equality. I think it is a disaster if every single thing that people do for money is at some point automated away, if we haven't governed it very, very properly. We need things like a universal basic income and a lot of guarantees and rights for individuals if we ever would achieve something like that. So yeah, I also worry about these things.
Yeah. We have been asking questions online with the help of Slido. So, sorry for that. Some people want to raise their hand. Should we act on climate change or AI risk first? Doesn't focusing on AI risk distract from climate change?
Well,
yeah.
Every topic that we discuss distracts from every other topic that is being discussed. And right now, I think that the climate crisis is a horrible thing, but existential risk isn't discussed nearly as much. So, for example, we have about 300 AI safety researchers in the world, and perhaps 1 million climate researchers. So we definitely need more of this right now.
Did you think that the event lasted till 9, or you were just leaving? Okay, I'm just wondering. Do you think it lasts until 9:15? Are we all agree on that? Okay, good. Yeah.
Maybe to summarize, it's not an either-or thing. And we have, as humans, we do have a limited attention span. But I think AI existential risk are one of the things that are currently very much undervalued in that regard.
Yeah. Okay. There are so many other questions. Shall I choose just one? Because there was one about people being afraid, which I... sorry, people. Yeah. People are now scared. Will this be just temporary and be gone when the news cycle moves on to the next clickbait? Will we be temporarily scared or not?
I can speak for my own fears. Like I first thought of this as like just an interesting problem. I've been reading about it for years, but never really acted on it and never really felt that much emotion about it. But when it really sunk in, just thinking about my own life and what will happen in the future, and when you start to combine that with these AI developments, then it gets scary. And I felt sad for like 2 months. I cried a lot, to be honest. It was very tough, but at some point you go through that and you have adjusted your vision of how the future may look, and it's painful. But part of me worries that everyone may have to deal with a similar type of emotional roller coaster like that if you want to make it this.
Wow. Does anybody recognize that? Feeling that kind of emotions? Hands? Okay. 2 hands, maybe? Some careful hands. Okay, there are people in the room feeling the same.
It's maybe on the news cycle. I mean, it took us quite a while to go from opening our first page on hives to being worried about the impact of social media on people storming the Congress or Brexit. And like, if you see how little time there's been from ChatGPT to people really getting worried about how this might impact society, I think that's gone a lot quicker. So, I mean, now the negative and the downsides of social media are almost unavoidable in the news. And I'm kind of hoping that AI will just be in a similar space, but maybe we learn quicker than we did the first time we dealt with a very simple algorithm. Yeah.
Okay. Good. Let's leave it with that. I would like to thank our panel, Joep Meinetsma, Mark Brakel, and Kritika Maheshwari. Thank you. Yeah. And I invite you to sit down for this. And I have a question for you. I give you some time to answer it, and I hope it will become online if I look friendly to our technicians. So what is, according to you, the best way forward in order to prevent an AGI catastrophe? It's an open question, so you can elaborate as much as you want. But it's also helpful for the organization to know your answer, so we can't read it all. Okay. What is the best way forward to stop creating more awareness? Memento mori, make people feel what's at stake, awareness, humility. You can also read. Pip install upgrade torch. I wrote it before. I don't know what you mean by that. Okay, I think there are a lot of people who like open discussions and want to create awareness, but there's also some people who don't know it yet, or who think, can we have a borrel? We are almost going to borrel together, but not before I invite Ruben on stage back again and give a short reflection on this event and the way the Existential Risk Observatory is going forward. So Ruben, please take the stage and give him a big applause.
Right. Thank you so much. First and foremost, thank you for not being scared away by technobabble. For the people that were unfamiliar with the topic, thank you for the people that were familiar with the topic for engaging. Thank you everybody for engaging so well with us. And thank you for continuing this conversation. You can find us online. You can find us first and foremost. Our website is over there. We also have socials, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We publish recently, often there, and as all the panel members have said before, it's very important to educate yourself on this topic. There are, fortunately, a lot of wonderful resources about this. I would like to thank, next up, of course, Otto Barton, who, as I said, couldn't make it today. He gave me some brief notes, which is apparently instead a huge piece of paper with a lot of text. I will borrow freely from that, also as to not keep you up much longer from the borrow, the mingle. And thank you so much for the wonderful job you did at moderation today. It was absolutely magnificent. Thank you so much, Desiree Hoving. Thank you, Kritika. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Joep. These were great answers, all highlighting different perspectives, which is exactly what we were going for. I hope you have been intellectually stimulated. I hope you have been encouraged to take some sort of action, or at least to keep on thinking about this. This is exactly what Existential Risk Observatory wants. It's there to inform public debate and to further this particular cause. And in the end, hopefully, make the world a little bit better, or at least less at risk. And with that said, if you humor me for a little bit, I think that concludes the evening. So thank you so much once more, and see you all downstairs at the borrel.
Yes, have a good one. Yes, thank you for your participation, and please let me know if this Slido thing was a good decision, or do you want to have the microphone next time? Let me know. Nee, het ging hartstikke goed.